Sith philosophy is based off of Nietzsche's philosophy of the Übermensch or Overman and master and slave morality. Well, a skewed version. The Sith follow the master morality, while the Jedi follow the slave morality. Well, more or less. According to Nietzsche, the Übermensch is an individual who doesn't merely obey or follow the laws of others, even God's laws. Therefore, the meaning of the Übermensch lies in his ability to create both for himself and of the world, and we should strive for this ideal. Upon giving up on objectivist morality, the Übermensch becomes a person who has overcome his or her own nihilism and is therefore able to create new values. Nietzsche makes it clear that the will to power is one of, perhaps, the most fundamental characteristic of living things, as can be seen from the quote above. He contends that the will to power predominates over any desire or will to coexist with living things. He continues by saying that although some people may consider some things to be more important than life, these are simply manifestations of the will to power. It's not difficult to imagine how this might be utilized in relation to particular facets of nature and life. People's attempts to dominate their surroundings, animals, etc., would be viewed as a manifestation of their will to power, due to the fact that it exemplifies how people can control their environment. Those who are mentally and physically strong feel good about themselves according to master morality. Wealth, glory, ambition, excellence, and self-actualization are valued in master morality. It affirms everything in life. Those who follow master morality are generally powerful or have considerable power, so not many follow it. These few, however, don't care who disapproves. Furthermore, this means the masters are creative, since they are willing to experiment with new life choices despite widespread disapproval, since they do not follow a prescribed life plan. It is possible and fair to say the morality of the ancient Greeks tended in this direction. The ethics of Aristotle, for example, show no respect for the poor and praise the powerful man who is capable of living a full life. There are several Greek heroes who make their will into reality regardless of the cost. The phrase, "the strong do what they want, the weak suffer what they must," may have originated as a result. It is important to note, however, that not all masters are vicious and oppressive. The great artists, philosophers, the prophets are all also placed in this category by Nietzsche. It shouldn't be mistaken for a blank check for sociopathy, but a few people might be compelled to step on others to realize their potential. Slave morality, in contrast, despises the master's strength and celebrates their own weaknesses. Nietzsche views the transvaluation of values as the main accomplishment of the slave uprising and even praises it as a brilliant act that had the effect of influencing Western thought for 2,000 years. Following this uprising, the master's possessions were despised because the slaves lacked them and the absence was turned into something positive. For instance, chastity was applauded because the authors of the moral code were unable to have sex they desired. Since they had nothing to be proud of, humility was regarded as a virtue. Unwavering generosity was lauded because they praised unending generosity because they themselves needed assistance. Sour grapes turned into a set of moral principles is the slave morality. The idea that the slave morality, in any guise, couldn't stand any competing moral systems existing is equally important to Nietzsche. According to Nietzsche, this is driven by concern over what unrestrained masters might do. As a result, plots to seize power, efforts to subdue the powerful in the name of equality, the persecution of the minority who upholds different morals, the fabrication of tales about hell to frighten people into submission, and the assertion that the slave morality, the way of life, must be followed by everyone as a result. According to Nietzsche, slave morality in its purest form can be found in the teachings of Jesus Christ, and he explained that the scriptures best capture its central principles. In addition, he observed how Buddhism, democracy, socialism, and other large-scale movements that aimed to promote equality and dull lives also displayed the slave morality. He perceived them all as a part of the gradual descent into nihilism he feared because the slave morality is frequently life-denying. Palpatine tells Anakin in the opera scene in Episode 3 that a person's perception of good and evil is determined by their perspective, just as Nietzsche said. Also, he argues that the Jedi acted treacherously because they fear losing power. Rather than embracing slave morality, Palpatine seems to be embracing a master morality. Think about the Jedi Code, for instance.
There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force.
Freedom, power, and strength are central themes of the Code of the Sith. There is no anger or revenge among Jedi. Attachments are avoided, such as marriages, and the Force always rules. It's impossible for them to fear death, since they are always selfless towards others. Slave morality sure does sound appealing. Nevertheless, Palpatine has embraced Nietzsche's master morality in the Code of the Sith.
Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me.
As the slave's morality was rooted in democracy, Nietzsche was critical of democracy. In this way, it distributes power amongst all, removing power from dominant, powerful individuals. In Episode 4, Palpatine dissolves the Senate, erasing democracy. Because Palpatine is motivated by his sheer will to power, he rejects Jedi slave morality. Recognizing that good and evil are simply points of view, his new morality, however, does not embrace nihilism. He believes it will make society more organized. He definitely has a Nietzschean vibe. Unfortunately, however, the Emperor does not carry out his plans in a Nietzschean manner. His misapplication of his will to power was the main cause of his failure. Nietzsche acknowledged that this was the primary motivating factor, but he disagreed that enforcing your will onto others was the best way to channel it. In fact, Nietzsche believed that the best way to attain power was to treat others with kindness and win their favor. Nietzsche believed that this drive should be switched to creative, life-affirming activities to become your true self, a self that, in Nietzsche's words, does not lie buried deep within you, but rises. You must first overcome your base desires and impulses. Yoda had once told him that fear led to hate led to suffering, but Yoda had been wrong. Fear was a tool used by the strong to cow the weak. Hate was the font of true strength. Suffering was not the result of the rule of the strong over the weak. Order was. By its very existence, the Force mandated the rule of the strong over the weak. The Force mandated order. Vader and his master imposed order the only way it could be imposed, through conquest, by forcing the disorder to submit to order, by bending the weak to the will of the strong. One of the main problems Nietzsche has with the Christian values, which has a lot of similarities to Jedi values, is that they aspire to what he calls an ascetic ideal, the denial of inner drives or desires we cannot help but have, like those for food or sex, in the name of virtue. This repression, this invention of sin, is psychologically unhealthy and leads to perpetual guilt and self-loathing. Nietzsche thinks we must thus discard the notions of sin and asceticism and rebuild our value systems in healthier, life-affirming ways. We are all of us, always being tested, my friend. Tests make us stronger, and strength is power, and power is the point. We must pass all the tests we face or die in the effort. Thank you so much for watching.